What's up, LA? This is Ryan Dyrud with the LA Football Podcast, and support for LAFB is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. Guys, I know a lot of you skip past these ads or just ignore them, but this is one that will actually benefit you every single time you use this product. The worst thing you can do is get nicks, cuts, scrapes, gashes, anything to your southern region down below. It's painful. It's gross. You don't want it. So that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months, that's a year and a half, perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. And even better, you get 20% off and free shipping with the code LAFB at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code LAFB. I promise you, your balls will thank you.
Touchdown, UCLA!
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
Los Angeles, what's going on? What's good? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you listen, this is the Believe in LA Football Podcast on the Believe Network, on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for your favorite Los Angeles football teams. Got a great show today. Joined as always by my man, Frostee Rucker. What's up, Frost?
Man, I'm good. We had a good show, man. This is a great way to do our off season, so to say, for all our LA teams. When you get to have conversation with people from all over the world, all over the globe, all over the U.S. about football. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're taking it Pac-12 versus SEC today, and I'm loving the conversation.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Jake Crain, he hosts the JBoy Show that covers all things SEC. So we get a little Pac-12 SEC debate. I know most of our listeners, I would assume, UCLA and USC fans. So obviously there's that Pac-12 passion and stuff like that. So we got talking to, you know, just the difference in recruiting and the difference in football and West Coast versus Southeast. And it was fun. Jake was a wealth of knowledge. He does some coaching too. So had a blast chat with him.
Yeah. Good guy. Best of luck to him. Can't wait for our listeners to dive in and share their perspective. Obviously on Twitter, everyone's been chopping it up with us, and we've gotten all the feedback and we love the engagement. Keep it up. This episode here will be good. So can't wait to hear from you guys.
Yeah, would love to hear feedback of what people think about the SEC. So I know there's that rivalry of Pac-12 doesn't get enough respect. I don't think they get enough respect, but, you know, a lot of it is earned, and they haven't really earned that respect. And I just have to say, because, you know, it happened last night. Larry Scott will no longer be the commissioner as of, I think, June of the Pac-12. So I know a lot of people will probably be happy with that, whether your opinion on him or not, but there will be a new commissioner for the Pac-12, which, you know, I think it'll be good just to move forward and, you know, get some fresh blood in here and work out some new TV contracts and hopefully put the conference back on the map.
You know, Ryan, I want to know who's going to be in charge of this hiring process, what the requirements are. I wish we could talk to each school and what things they would like to see different in a commissioner, but it's going to be interesting to see who they pick, what leadership happens, and how they move the Pac-12 forward.
Yeah, I haven't dove into potential candidates or names, but one I did see, and I've drawn a blank even on the name, but former Arizona athletic director is now with the SEC in some high capacity. So I don't know if he'd be willing to leave the SEC, but I think that's a guy that could bring a lot of that SEC knowledge to the Pac-12. Obviously having roots here could be good. So I'll have to figure out what his name was. I'm drawing a blank, but aside from him, I don't know candidates. And yeah, I don't even know how they do the search. Obviously, you know, this is nothing new. There's commissioners come and go, but Definitely need a big voice in there that's going to make moves and bring the Pac-12 to 2021. So I think they're living in the past a little bit.
Yeah, and it's that time. Everything's progressing, and we need someone that's going to help with this new movement of these kids getting paid for their likeness. Someone has to, be youthful-minded with coming with the way they project things. So this is going to be an interesting time for us, but hopefully the progress is good and we get the right commissioner for the Pac-12.
Yeah, absolutely. So today's show, the LA Football Podcast, brought to you by BetOnline.Ag, your home for all your sports bets, plus the online casino is always open. Frost, since we're talking betting real quick on the spot, who do you like this weekend? Chiefs, Bills, and Packers and Bucks.
This is a great weekend of football.
Great weekend.
I'll just say that this is a great weekend of football. I'll start with the Chiefs, Bills. It's a scary one. I really like the Bills just because of the way they're playing. They're playing so passionate, and this has happened over the last 4 or 5 years of them playing hard and consistent and getting better and better and better. And they got the quarterback of the future. What a matchup. And I hate that they have to have a matchup with a not-so-healthy Patrick Mahomes, right? My homeboy, as he's also called out there in the sports world, coming up with a concussion. Didn't look like much, but obviously he wobbled getting up off the field. And they say he practiced all week, which is a great sign. Say, full participant, took every rep. That's great. So it's good, but I don't want that to come back and bite them. His health, but the momentum they had and the run they had. But as we seen last week, anything is possible. So we'll have to take a look at that. It's a scary one. I have to come back with a prediction maybe after the show on that one. Yeah. Then the next game, we got A-Rod and Brady, two ball clubs. This is first time A-Rod's hosted the NFC Championship game in Green Bay. So hopefully they're praying for a little weather to be on their side with these Florida boys coming up there in the cold. Obviously, there's a couple guys that know a few things about playing in cold weather, and that's Brady and Gronk.
Yep.
And AB. There's a couple guys on that team, but not like the seasoned Green Bay Packers. So this is another matchup that's huge. It's a blockbuster game for both their careers, where they're at. I'm talking A-Rod and Mr. Brady. And for this one, I'd like to say it's my whole coaching staff from Arizona's, the Tampa Bay coaching staff. There's a couple players on the team that I played with. It's a great matchup, and I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers will be playing in the Super Bowl because they have the home field advantage, and they'll be having fans there. So home field advantage fans there, and it's going to be their energy and their time to win it. Yeah,
it should be a good game. I don't want to say surprised because obviously when you have Brady and you have a good team like the Buccaneers, but I thought the Saints were going to win that game. I just think they had a better team, and obviously, and really unfortunate if that's Drew Brees' last game because he did not play well. And really, the Buccaneers, when you get the ball 3 times in the red zone on turnovers, and you're probably going to win that game, especially in a playoff game. So, but that being said, the Packers are a good team. I don't need to get a lot into it. I like the Packers, and I like the Bills over in the AFC. They were my pick before the playoffs started. So, the Chiefs are the champion until proven otherwise, but I just think the Bills have that magic sprinkle, that magic dust on them this season. If you go to BetOnline.Ag, the Packers are 3-point favorites, and the Chiefs are also 3-point favorites. If I were you, I'd go now because the Mahomes hasn't broken yet if he's playing or not. So if he, that line could probably definitely change, depending on his status. So I think 3 points is pretty good right now if you head to BetOnline.Ag and put that on. So BetOnline.Ag, your home for sports wagering. So Frost, before we do this interview real quick, I know it's morning, but you're a steak guy, right? You hungry?
I am hungry.
Yeah, always.
Steak and eggs.
There you go. Okay, perfect. Well, if you like steak and eggs, you could head to kansascitysteaks.com/gameday and save up to $25 on combos perfect for game day or any day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, plus free shipping when you use our code BELIEVE. That's BELEAV at checkout. They got great snack pack combos featuring small plates with big flavor. I think the mini beef Wellington steak burger sliders sound absolutely fantastic. There's also shrimp wrapped bacon, mac and cheese melts, Can't go wrong. You can go to kansascitysteaks.com/gameday and use the code BELIEVE at checkout. BLEAV for free shipping and get you $25 off combos. That's kansascitysteaks.com/gameday.
A little secret for everyone. I am going to be ordering those beef Wellington sliders for the Super Bowl.
There you go.
I'm doing it. You
for the
should do
Super
it
Bowl.
too.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. You should do it too.
Even if you're not having a Super Bowl party, maybe not the safest thing this year to do, but you can still order some great meat for you and your loved ones there to watch the big game.
No one said you're not supposed to eat good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever ordered like food? Not like Postmates, but have you ever ordered like flash frozen food?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it still comes out good? Because I've never really done it.
Great.
I've ordered one time after me and my wife went to Chicago. You know, the pizza out there, if you like deep dish, phenomenal. Giordano's, Illuminati's, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got back to LA, and there's a few places out here we like. Shout out to Mesa and Echo Park, phenomenal. But we wanted like some real Chicago deep dish, so you can actually order it, and they ship it to you. So that's the closest I've had, but I've never done like steaks.
Was it tasty?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
There you go.
It didn't come out probably quite as good just because we have like a tiny ass conventional oven in our so it's not the true brick oven, but so it came out pretty good.
Yep, there's some great food all over the place. But for your game day grubs, go to kansascitysteaks.com/gameday.
There you go.
Right.
And it's beautiful in Southern California, so you will definitely be barbecuing. All right, Frost, let's go ahead and jump into this conversation with Jake Crain from the JBoy Show, and let's have some battle back and forth on Pac-12 versus SEC. All right, LA football fans, I think we got a fun show today. Going to go a little back and forth, Pac-12, SEC, just some fun conversation. We're joined by Jake Crain, host of the JBoy Show on the Believe Network as well. But Jake, man, thanks for joining us. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, I'm excited to be here with you guys. Love what y'all are doing over there. Follow you guys. The content y'all put out is always good, and excited to get on and talk some ball with a couple guys that know what's up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds good to me. Jake, where you reside at right now?
Man, I'm in Tupelo, Mississippi, the city that always sleeps, but probably going to be moving here soon to a bigger market. Obviously some things with the show. So it's a little overcast today. Actually been chilly down here. Got some flurries a couple weeks ago, and you know how it is in the South. If the road's ice or it's a flurry, they shut everything down. So it's gonna warm up hopefully here soon, man. But in Mississippi right now, but gonna branch out, let's say.
Where exactly in Mississippi is that? I've been to Boonville, Mississippi. I don't know if you've heard of Boonville.
Yeah, that's close. That's close.
Okay.
It's probably Tubelo's an hour south of Memphis. I just basically tell everybody it's Memphis. It's obviously the northern part of Mississippi and getting on up there close to Tennessee. So it's gets a mix of weather, like I said. So it's a little bit different than other places in Mississippi.
Awesome. My whole family's from Memphis, so I was just
okay. Best barbecue around. I don't care what anybody says. I'll put it up against anybody.
That's what everyone says. I'll put
it up against anybody.
Yeah. When I went to Boonville a long time ago, and it was after Hurricane Katrina, when now they do some work, and just the people down there are awesome.
Yeah, they are. I mean,
small town feel, but super cool.
Yeah, and again, it's give you the shirt off their back, and it's just it's fun too. Being able to do this podcast and talk with people in different areas as well. So that's been a really cool part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to give a shout out to Lamar, Mississippi, is where right there in the hood of Lamar. A lot of family grew up. My great grandma's is from there. So
okay, a small world. I had Woody Page on here, Frostee, a couple months ago, and he asked me where I was from in the pre-show, and I was like, or where I'm at. I was like, I'm in Tupelo, and he was like, yeah, just ask me about that on the show. So I was like, all right. So we start the show. And I kind of started off with, in Tupelo, whatever. Turns out Woody Page is from Tupelo. Not only is Woody Page from Tupelo, his brother was boys with Elvis, and they grew up across the street from each other. So I just let him talk for like 30 minutes about how, his brother used to roam around in the same, they called it the Memphis Mafia, I think, with Elvis and like 6 or 7 other guys. And they maintained a friendship, man, and all the way up until he died. So it's Tupelo. It's where Elvis is from. They still have his house probably about 5 minutes from where I'm at in the old hardware store downtown where he bought his guitar. So Tupelo's got a little history. Mississippi's got a little more than what people think once you start to dig a little bit.
They got some history, all right.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. No, I mean, not all good, but the Elvis part's good.
Yeah. That's dude, Woody Page. I love that guy. That guy's the
Oh, dude, he was great. One of my favorites. He's
from
absolutely. I've
Denver
had
originally.
a ton of guests. Yeah. And man, he told a story about Josh McDaniel, about how he told him, like, look, man, they're about to fire you, dog. Like, and then told the story about, let me try and help you. And McDaniel kind of stood him up. So Woody was pretty salty on that. It's a great story. I just let him talk, man. I just shut up and let him talk.
Yeah, he's one of those media guys that actually has like a lot of influence, and now he's he's stepped back a little bit and just chilled. But in his heyday, he was like a powerful dude in the sports.
Yeah, well, Woody's one of the guys. He's actually going to tell you what he really thinks. Like, regardless if you agree or disagree, like, he's going to tell you what he really thinks, all within the realm of rational, sports talk and stuff like that. And I think that's a dying breed nowadays, and something that makes Woody stand out and other people stand out, especially obviously when you're knowledgeable about the subject that you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So
let's dive into this a little bit, Jake. We're going to talk about SEC versus Pac-12 and various different things. You specialize in talking about recruiting. Why do you think there's a vast difference of why the SEC is so much more, how do I put this right, Ryan?
Dominant.
Yeah, there's a word, dominant over the Pac-12 and just the scope of how everyone views the SEC.
Yeah, that's a great question. And really the way I look at it and the way I'd like to phrase it is, us sitting right here, Frostee, being from California, I know you love football just as much as everybody that was born in Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi, and you love the game. People out there that love the game on the West Coast, and I'm talking about West Coast recruits specifically because that has been a problem. I mean, you look at guys like Bryce Young and all these other guys that have gone from, that coast to the other. I just think that football down here is more of a way of life than it is out there. I think it's that simple in that it's something here that people need, they almost have to have. And out there, I think it's an extra, topping on the ice cream. Now, I say that, and the reason I prefaced that, Frostee, was saying guys like you care just as much as guys like me that grew up in the state of Alabama, is that doesn't mean that people out there don't care or the ones that do care less. I just think there's more here. I think you can look at attendance. I think you can look at how many more cities depend on the football team and the athletic program economically, whether it's Auburn or Knoxville or Oxford. That's not LA where they cannot have USC and be fine. And look, I'm in a state. What pro team is in my state, Frostee, Ryan? Name a NFL team that's in the state of Alabama. Name an NBA team. You can't. So your pinnacle, when you're born here, they typically put a football or a pom-pom in your crib, and that's just what it is. And there's places and counties that do that. And I really think it's not that people here just care more in general. I just think there's more of them. And I think you see that permeate in recruiting because there's great players out there. I think too, obviously everything that's gone on, all the high school kids that have had to move from out there to the South just shows you how many people really care about football that much out there. I just think there's more on this side of the country. I think it's really that simple. I
could see that. I could definitely see how we have options. And like you just you mentioned, for me, I'm a football diehard. So no matter what, I was going to get to where I was going to get because
exactly.
I was so focused on that. And that was my only ticket out. And, when I look at SEC football, to kind of go off what you're saying, I look at it as Friday Night Lights, kind of.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's got that same feel. We're not talking Texas, but we're talking, even though there's, A&M and SEC. But it is a completely different thing. My city when I played, 4 of us went pro from my hometown. We all went pro. And we're not Hollywood, we're neighborhood is what we like to call it.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? So we kept the neighborhood and we just got us off and got to where we had to go. But when you look at other areas, it's pretty unique to see how things shut down and the whole team is rooting for the team and the mayor and everyone's at those games every Friday night. And I was talking to Mike Williams. He's out of Florida. He was my receiver when I was in college, my roommate, close friends. And I had him on the show and we were just, having a great conversation. I was asking him the same thing. Why is it different from California ball to Florida ball? And he's like, well, options. He said, you got to look at the heat. You got to really want it to be playing in the town. You know what I mean? Because you got all these elements that really put you through it. And That's where you're going to get bigger linemen, your running backs and things like that, even though USC, where I went to school, is considered one of the running back U's. But at the same time, now it's a quarterback university. It's a receiver university. And that's like a West Coast thing. As for meat and potatoes is back in the South.
Yeah. Well, you know as well as I do, Frosty, you played at a higher level than any of us. It comes down to up front most of the time. If you dominate up front, because I think there's schools in the AAC and in the Sun Belt and wherever that have skill players that are good enough to play, at some of these higher conferences, but the depth up front, I look at Alabama. What makes Alabama great? Well, it's those monsters they got up front on the offensive line and everything else. I mean, Matt Jones, you don't have to be Joe Montana to sit back in the pocket and wait for Devontae Smith to run a post when you have Jalen Waddle and they can't bracket both of them. So I agree with you 100%, Frosty. And I want to say something else because I think it's important. And I brought these numbers up and you talk about options and a lot of places where I grew up. And I think, maybe in some places too, in California, I'm just not spelled well enough on California to be able to speak on it. So I'm not going to pretend like I know. A lot of places here, you're judged based on whether you play football or not. That's something to where when people in my community, if you go apply for a job and on that resume, you said, well, I started at Opelika High School for 3 years, that means something to those people. And that doesn't mean that you're better than somebody else or somebody that didn't play football or that it's not cool to be in the band or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But it is almost a rite of passage to be able to go out and see your friends and kind of be in a group. And they say, wow, those guys play football. That means something. Where I'm from, the guys at the local coffee shop are talking about you every morning. That's all the radio's talking about, regardless if it's football season. And that's, I think, what you were alluding to is it is absolutely a way of life. Just like you wake up and eat breakfast and lunch and dinner, you wake up down here, you think, all right, how is my team doing in recruiting? How's our coach doing? We're paying him $8 million a year to do this, that, and the other. And it affects how your day goes, whether or not when I was growing up, if Auburn lost or if Auburn got a recruit or didn't get a recruit, it could ruin my day because that's how important it was. And I think that's the difference when you see, and I got the attendance numbers right here. And I remember when USC was cooking Frosty, y'all were the hottest thing out. Y'all were the hottest thing out. And I remember that growing up because I watched Liner and the gang roll into Jordan Hare and drop Auburn 23-0.
That was my first game.
I know. That's what I was actually going to ask you about that later. I kind of blew it.
Ronnie Brown.
Dude, I remember that. And I just think at the end of the day, like you said, you were going to get in your bag regardless and get it whether you were born in Anchorage, Alaska. It didn't matter. And to me, that's the mindset of everybody and then everybody in the community down here in the South of, all right, let's see what this guy does. Oh, wow, he's the starting running back. You're the starting running back at a high school in a big community and you're a good player. You may be able to walk around the hallways an extra 20 minutes. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I agree with all that too. I always have so much respect for the SEC and what football means down there. Let's shift it a tiny bit to media now, like the media umbrella or the public perception. Because obviously that's all fun and true for the community down there for how they recruit and all the stuff like this. And this may be met with some contention, but I get in debates a lot with friends and stuff that want to go back and forth, Pac-12, SEC. And the thing I always say is, that the SEC, with how great it is, to me, it's a very top heavy conference. You have, obviously Alabama's the best in the world at what they do. Auburn's always good. But I was looking through it. You have give or take, wiggle room there, but 7 of the 14 teams are always very good. The top 3 are probably top 10 in the country. But after that, it's like a good drop off. And the bottom 7, not very great. Vanderbilt didn't win a game this year. So I always say, what is the media's enamorment with just crowning the SEC every year, not as the best team in Alabama, but as the best conference when I would put up, Colorado, Oregon State, Stanford, Cal, who are kind of bottom tier Pac-12 teams, I'd take them over Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, blah, 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 blah. And again, probably maybe some contention.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Look, number one, I'm trying to figure out a way to attack this. And listen, Ryan, I don't think it's a crazy take, but I think what makes the SEC different is, I wonder what happens if you put Oregon State in the SEC. How many games do they win a year? when you got to play, because I think the common misconception is, I think it's tough to say that half the league's good, but then the other half is bad when the league has to play each other. So if you're going to say that half of them are good and they're playing against the other half that you say are bad, so the other half that are bad are consistently losing to good teams, more good teams than you play in the Pac-12. And the way I look at it's like this, and people always say, look at the national champion, look at the national champion. And that's one way to look at it, but I'm with you. I like looking at depth in conference. But I will say, obviously the last time Pac-12 won a national championship was in 2004 with USC. Florida's won it twice. LSU's won it twice. Auburn's won it once. Bama's won it 6 times. Texas has won it once. You look at the Pac-12 in the playoff. Oregon got in there, won the first game, got blown out by Ohio State. Washington got in there, ran into Bama. And you say, okay, well, they're top heavy. My question is, if you were to take the bottom half of the Pac-12 and put them in a conference with the bottom half of the SEC, I promise you an SEC team would finish first and second in that conference every year, because I think the drop off between where the Pac-12. So who are the elite teams in the Pac-12 right now? I think it's a better way. Let me ask y'all, who are the elite teams?
Oregon, USC.
Washington's always up there.
Washington, Utah, usually good.
Yeah, they surprised me how bad they were on special teams this year, Frostee, because I'm a special teams guy, and I'd watch Utah and just write down stuff that they do because I thought it was amazing. But in order, I guess that would be elite into the conference. My question is, outside of Oregon winning the Rose Bowl, last year, really nobody from the Pac-12 has done anything to say. What has Oregon State done to tell you they're better than Mississippi State? What would tell you that? Who have they beaten that would tell you that?
They haven't done anything.
And I don't want to make this like a I bash the Pac-12 thing, because I think there are some good teams in the Pac-12. And y'all, listen, I watched after what USC did, after what I watched Pete Carroll and them do, it's very hard for me to say a lot about the Pac-12 other than kind of what's been, reciprocated recently. But I just don't see a team outside of the ones you listed. You put USC, I think, in the SEC right now, they lose 4 games a year. I think you put Oregon, who, this year's weird, went 3-2, lost some bad games. You put them in the SEC right now, I think they lose 4 games. I just think you'd have a lot more teams from the SEC. If you took Texas A&M this year and put them in the Pac-12, they'd have wiped everybody, in my opinion.
And you're not saying anything wrong, and obviously it's based off opinion and the product that's put on the field. There's still draft picks even coming out of the Pac-12.
Oh yeah.
It's just the win success isn't good. And when we talk about, you want to really go back to why it's like that, I'd have to bring up something controversial. I played in the league a long time. A lot of SEC players, great friends of mine. They told me stories that I can't even tell here, but.
Yeah.
When I look at things like the stuff they tell me and what happened to USC, for instance, with the death penalty and set us back a decade or more in our sports program, that's the way I feel. I feel like somehow NCAA and SEC are in it together, and they're going to stay dominant like that, because I guess that's where all the money's going to come from.
Yeah, I can see that. And again, I mean, you look at the deal the SEC Network just signed with Disney. I mean, let's not lie, $360 million. That's a lot of money for a TV deal. And obviously it behooves. And to be honest with you, it's funny because as a SEC guy, I kind of feel that same way about Notre Dame and the way that they always, crown them, which I thought them being the ACC was huge this year. But, I've coached in JUCO. I watched a certain school kid end up signing with South Carolina. He's in the league right now, but I watched, a certain school out west when I was coaching at Jones County, drive a limo up to campus, which is illegal, put him on a jet, came back with a bunch of golds in his mouth. He still ended up signing with South Carolina because they were doing some stuff too. But look, Frostee, and I do too. And I can't speak to obviously your experience and wouldn't try to. But stuff goes on. You look at what's happening at Tennessee right now. The NCAA is about to hammer them. It seems like the only team that really doesn't get caught is Alabama. I think Georgia may be in trouble here in a second. And I can understand that. And there may be a little validity to that. I do think Mark Emmert is very eccentric towards certain places. I will say this. I think you guys getting rid of Larry Scott was a good deal. I think we'll put you guys ahead in the conference. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But, on the whole, I think everybody cheats, man. I just think at the SEC, they're better at it.
My whole thing is, why are we even calling it cheating?
Yeah, well, with image and likeness anymore, I mean, are we? I mean, now, how do you separate it, right? Like, my only thing is, so if we're going to give players endorsements, how can you ever opt out? I think that's something that we're going to run into. It's just very interesting. This whole deal, how they're going to organize it, which I think I'm a fan of. Obviously, I was a players coach, whatever. I'm always for the players. Right. Whatever can help them out, I'm for. I just think it has to be organized, especially with the young guys, because as well as I do, I was a 17, 18-year-old, and you give me a lot of money, there's no telling what I'd have done with it. So as long as it's organized and they're smart about it, I think it could really help.
Well, I feel like this is the thing that's going to push the West Coast back up top, because you're going to get some kids that don't want to, risk anything, even though they don't never get in trouble in the SEC. Yeah. But they can come out West and be in the big media capital of the world and make some money off their likeness. I think the education level, when we're talking about what's going to happen, needs to happen with their parents. The parents need to know what's going on. Their parents need to take be in front of it and interview media companies and this, that, and the other. But the issue is they don't have any guidance either. So they don't know what is a bad deal. They don't know how to not put their kid in a wrong situation, trying to make themselves a right situation, trying to make some money themselves. I think they're onto something good, because obviously I feel like the likeness deal happened because of us at USC.
Yeah.
Right? I think that you really put a program, a prestige program that is always competing for championships behind by decades.
Well, I agree. Well, I say this too, Frostee. I think you'll agree with me, Ryan, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think not only y'all's situation, but the Todd Gurley situation, where he got in trouble for signed memorabilia that he signed. Like that's something to me that will never, ever make sense. It's the only video, and I used to be amazed. I'd go to Auburn when, Cam Newton was there, and I'd walk in the bookstore, and they'd be sold out of number 2 jerseys, but there was no name on it. Who was number 2 that's selling all those? It's amazing. Tim Tebow, the same thing at Florida. And to your point, Frostee, I think parents, if you're going to have image and likeness, then you need representation. So, and having an agent, stuff like that, I'm just very wary, because we all know how the agents operate in the coaching sphere and using leverage and stuff like that. Yeah. We got to make sure that the agents are looking out for the guys, because especially the guys, what if you have no background? What if you have no stability? If you're a 17-year-old 5-star and you have to bounce around from house to house, or you're living in your car, or a guy like Josh Jacobs, so somebody going back to that, who do you get to represent you? So there's a lot of questions they have to answer, Frostee. I agree with you 100%. I just want to make sure that the representation is fair and is right, because having parents have to do it on their own, that's too much in my opinion.
But check this out. That same issue that we're talking about happens when guys are at a university and about to go get drafted. They don't know anything. And if we're going back off statistics, they still don't have any money when they're in college. Yeah. So it's the same issues, and it's the education of everyone that's coming along in this. And how do they make more programs for that? Yeah. If your kid's getting a scholarship, here's a playbook, a scholarship playbook. Here is what the things you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Parents, uncles, aunts, send them 10 books.
Yeah, I'm with you. Guidelines, put the guidelines in there. Let's all follow it.
It's everyone that's going to be influenced with this athlete. They need to know. And that's one of the issues every pro athlete has. If it's an agent, if it's a financial advisor, what education level do they have to make a decision like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want a situation like, I know it's a show, but the show Ballers with, Vernon's buddy Reggie handing all his money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, and again, and I want to say this, I talk, SEC, and that's a huge part of the show, but I'm a college football purist. I want college football to be great everywhere. I want USC to be great. I want Oregon to be great. I want those matchups. I want those games. I'm like y'all, at least I assume. I'm tired of watching Alabama play Clemson every year. I'm tired of watching this monopoly on college football, because all we do is talk about the same 4 or 5 teams. And then we find it we're amazed that those same teams, regardless of if they maybe lost a game they shouldn't, or if they didn't play well, they always seem to find their way into the playoff. And Alabama's not, I'm not using that as an example. They were dominant. They're the best team in college football. But, and I know I'm kind of bouncing around here, but I think another thing that will help is expanding the playoff to 8 teams. I think you expand it to 8 because recruiting is how this happened. Here's the monopoly. I'm Nick Saban or Ryan Day or Dabo Sweeney or Brian Kelly and one other, I guess. I can go into a living room and say, well, we're going to make the playoff. We make the playoff you want to play in the biggest game? You want the scouts to see you in the biggest game? You want to be the next, Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith? Well, you got to come here because these guys aren't making the playoff. But now when you extend it to 8, the coach at Texas A&M or the coach at Oregon or the coach at UCLA can go into a living room and say, hey, dog, we're making the playoff too. You're going to get to play in that same game. Now you can stay closer to home and have a chance to play in the big game. Because to me, it's a monopoly on recruiting. That's the problem. And I don't blame these kids that look at these guys that always make the playoff and always send these guys to the NFL and decide to go there, whether they're from Palomino County or if they're from Lamar, Mississippi. They all want the same thing. So I think by expanding the playoff to 8, anything more than that is too much, in my opinion, would water down the regular season. You should have a top 25 for the Power 5, a top 25 for the Group of 5, and the team that finishes number 1 at the end of the year in the Group of 5 should automatically get the 8th seed in there so they actually get a chance. Not saying they'd win it, but this token, here, go tell your friends you won the fake natty, UCF, go tell all your buddies, and then nobody else takes you serious. So I think that's one way, too, that the West could be won, per se.
Yeah, I've been all for an expansion because I just think 4 is too little when you have 300 schools vying for it. I want to talk a little bit more about Jake, but let me ask you this real quick regarding recruiting. And I don't want to sound disrespectful at all the SEC. All those institutions are great, great schools. So I don't want this to come off wrong. I know that's weird to preface it like that, but we've had some people on our show in regards to UCLA and Oregon and the Pac-12, and they said one of their opinion, one of the big reasons why the Pac-12 has fallen back in recruiting is the fact that they are truly, again, Stanford are truly recruiting student athletes, guys that have to have academic eligibility to play in these games, higher institutions that require, a lot of book work and smarts, I guess you could say. I don't want to say the SEC is not doing that, but is there a sense at all that the SEC kind of gets away with maybe not recruiting guys that are meeting those eligibility requirements and they push them through?
Well, let me ask you this. Would you have said the same thing when Stanford was dominating with David Shaw earlier there or when Oregon was doing their thing with Marcus Mariota? I think that argument, it is harder to get in Stanford than it is, Mississippi State. There are some schools, obviously, Vanderbilt. I think that's the only reason they're in the conference because I can use them in this specific argument. I think that's the only reason they're there.
Quick to cut you off. When Stanford was doing that, though, they had Andrew Luck, the best quarterback in the league, who's also like a
it's that they recruited the right. You can. What I'm saying is, you can win with their standards. It's not impossible to win,
totally.
Especially when you're at another play in a conference that has other schools with that same standard. If it's easier to get guys in academically, it obviously helps. Especially in junior college, I think that's a big deal when it comes down to some schools like that. But across the board, I think it's more to what, kind of me and Frostee were talking about in the beginning, the more of, trying to get to a place where, it's the most important or that has made it more of a priority. Because, again, if you're a guy that's able to come in and ball in the South, you're going to have a little bit of leeway. Now, from an academic standards standpoint, yeah, I would say across the board, it's probably easier to get in SEC schools. But, I look at the success that the Pac-12 has had, and I don't think they want to use that as an excuse, because if you use that as an excuse, either two things have to happen. Either one, you just stop trying to win because you're saying, all right, well, there's no point in competing because it's harder to get in here. Or two, you lower your academic standards to try and compete. And I don't think they're doing either one of those. That's why I think they kind of dance around that. But, there is some validity to that, but I think it's more of what we were talking about in the beginning, really, than at the end right there. But that's not a crazy take, Ryan. I really don't think that's a crazy. I'm not, I don't feel disrespected by that. I think if you looked across the board, no, it takes, listen, I'm pretty thick skinned, dog. I've had a lot of things said to me by important people. So, it's not, you guys are important, but it's hard to get under my skin, I guess.
Ryan and Jake, for the record, I do want to say I'm not necessarily tired of seeing Clemson, Alabama, LSU, Ohio State in the big game. Until you beat them, I don't care, because I've been on the opposite side of being won and being the hunted, right? And everyone back in the South, well, they're always number one, or, they're from the West Coast. They can't really be that good. And it's hard. I played in the league. It's, people talk smack. They don't want to see Tom Brady win Super Bowls. They don't want to see the Patriots keep winning.
Oh, yeah.
That's the hardest thing. It's like when you build a program and you build strength like that, and that the next guy up can do it just like the guy that just was there, I'm all for it. Yeah. So I am biased. I went to SC. I do want to see us in these matchups, but I also don't want to see us get demolished in these matchups.
Yeah.
I want to see USC play Alabama in Jerry's world and get blown out and then just set our program back because now we can't get any recruits because we bit off more than we could chew.
Yeah, and look, I'm with that. I'm with you, man. I was competitive. You got to beat the big dogs, and with 4 teams, it is what it is. You got to beat them. And I will say that most of the time, if not all the time, with this playoff system, the best team has won the national championship. I actually think that's true more in this phase of college football than others because you actually do get to play some more games at the end and play it out. And it's funny, I'm kind of on this side of the argument being the SEC guy, when we always want our guys to be in there. But to me, when I'm looking at it, I imagine how many more great games we can add. I think about how great the playoff is, and you talk about having a matchup that USC can compete with Alabama, not just get there, but compete and have a chance to win the game. Well, I think, a way that we can see that is by letting, USC get in there as the 7th seed and playing Ohio State, and then they beat them, and they may lose the next round. But now you can go into a living room and say, we're this close. You saw us. You want to play? We're this close. And to me, I just think we're missing out because I believe that the NCAA basketball tournament is the greatest sporting event in the history of the world. I love that sporting event. I love watching it, and I think it's awesome. Now, you obviously can't have that many teams, but I only can imagine how awesome a game would be, a 5 versus a 6 seed, and all of a sudden you've got an Oklahoma team this past year that got really hot at the end, who's playing their best ball, versus a Florida team where Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts actually have to play, and you're seeing those matchups. And to me, I think just as college football fans, because the best team's going to win it most of the time, even if you put 8 teams in the playoff. Will that stop Alabama and Clemson from playing each other? Probably not, is the thing. But at least we're adding another element to the end that gives other teams a chance over the long haul. Because to me, I think you guys will agree, this isn't a one-year fix. You're not going to fix this in one season. This has to be accomplished over 3 to 5 years. You look at the end of the 5th year and say, wow, look at the parity now that we have. Look at guys, how awesome would it have been to see an 8-seed Cincinnati just have to play Alabama in the first round, just to see? They might have gotten waxed, but what a matchup between Luke Fickell and Nick Saban, a veteran team in Cincinnati, and Alabama actually having to play that game. You're only adding a couple more, man. My mind, just as a college football fan, and Frostee, I agree with you. Like you said, they're the big dogs until you knock them off. And I don't want you guys to think that I am not for dominating or having one team dominate. I love watching teams dominate, especially when you're on that team. But my mind starts going when I start thinking about some of these matchups, man.
Yeah, and that Cincinnati Georgia game was a great game too.
Oh God, it was great. And Georgia had a lot of guys sit out too. But I tell you what, I'll say this. I'm surprised. If I'm Tennessee right now, I'm doing whatever I have to do to get Marcus Freeman. Whatever I have to do to get Marcus Freeman to be the head coach. I think Marcus Freeman, and Luke Fickell does a great job. But Marcus Freeman, number one, is able to call the game just so sequentially, and it's almost like he's not even reacting. It's like he's being proactive. But they're so disciplined on defense at Cincinnati, and I think that's the best compliment you can give a coordinator and a head coach. I always like to ask guys that I've had on that played at a high level, you in the NFL, just for a second, can you just say, and I try to explain this, but you could do it better, the difference in playing in the NFL and in high level college football, just the speed of the game and just how good the players are. It's amazing to me how good the players are and how they continue to just get better.
I believe if you're a skilled level player, a receiver, a corner, I think it's often the same because you're running, you're jumping, you're doing that. But I think technique-wise, when you're playing up front, that's the huge gap. Because now you're playing versus guys that got 3 or 4 kids, a little bit older. They may not be as strong with their punch, but they know how to position themselves with their body and, beat you to a spot, get out of their stance a little bit quicker. They know what you're reading on tape and how to adjust off that. If it's the way they get in their stance and alignments and stuff like that, they're crafty and they're seasoned that way. I think the little guys in the back, ultimately it's going to be the same thing. You may every so often get a lockdown corner that is going to travel with a receiver across the field, when in college they're just playing the coverage and that's what it is, right? But up front, that's where it's the big difference. And that's what I've seen. And talking to guys also, that's what they could say. There's like, for us, we're still running, we're jumping for footballs high in the sky, we're, getting our hands.
That makes a lot of sense.
Getting hands on people and stuff like that. Maybe the rules change a little bit and they can't, go past 5 yards touching someone or something like that, But other than that, that's where I seen personally the biggest gap was up front, because guys were way more seasoned with their technique. May not be as strong, because if you're going to have some type of career in football, right, you're just going to age with that. And each year there's a new pool of kids coming in, 22, 23. So you got mind over matter. You know better. You know stuff they don't know yet.
You know the tricks too. Yeah. I always find it interesting. I love watching the rookie DNs go up against the tackles that have been in the league for 4 or 5 years, and just watch the tackle, kind of set them up, and wait for that move. Because it's funny, I always love watching the first kind of move they put on top of their moves in the NFL, the first good one, you think you got, whether it's that half spin. But no, Frostee, I appreciate that, man. That's something I love to ask, because I find 99.9% of the time it's up front. It's up front, and that's part of the game.
Up front, and
I'm so with you, dog.
How you're going to be as dominant, obviously, like we're watching pro sports right now. We're watching the Chiefs. They happen to have a once-in-a-lifetime player playing quarterback, right?
A witch.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But other than that, teams that have the most success are, again, they have a strong run game, and that's from up front.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like you said, watching rookie defensive ends go versus tackles, the game of football's changed. So when I came in, there was double days. It was really hard knock life to like make it in the NFL. But now, from Pop Warner to high school to college, there's no double days. It's not really that hard. You just got to get through the one practice, right?
Yeah.
And now in the NFL, there's more guys leaving school early, right?
That's very true.
You have to adjust to these younger guys and how they play football, and you can't be as mean to them, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You have to be more lenient and let them rush the way they want to rush, as for just saying, no, you got to be in this gap, because that's how I was taught. I came in with all the moves. I was quick. I could go inside, but my coach said, you're playing like water. And I didn't understand that. It's like water flows any other way through cracks or anything, and that's going to cost us. But now you see guys that come in the game, they're just there for stats, because stats get you money.
Yeah.
But the way I played and the way I was brought up was about the whole team's success.
Yeah, dude. It's just amazing. I thought only receivers ran option routes. Like it's amazing to me how you can be like, well, you got to be in this gap. Like as a defensive guy, like I'm drawing up my defense. That's got to be really tough. Like, all right, well, we're giving the end a two-way go, or, if he reads the high shoulder by the tackle, he's going to go ahead and speed rush. I just think you'd almost have to have like a fail-safe built into every play, or somebody on the D-line who you're like, listen, man, this guy's going to do what he wants. Just, if you could two-gap it, just please help us out.
You can see that in professional football. You see that with, this isn't even a knock, but you see it with J.J. Watt. He takes more chances than anyone.
Yeah.
Certain people, when you make that dollar amount, you can take those chances, and someone behind you has to play off you. But what takes those chances becomes 66-yard touchdown runs and, people hitting their head on the goalpost because no one's touching them, and then your success level's gone. I think football in a whole is played selfishly now and not team-oriented, because you're all relying on one player to do it all.
Turned into basketball, man.
Yeah.
And I still love football. Don't get this twisted. And I'm just critiquing and answering a question or elaborating on the I had. But the game has become so for clips and did you see that spin? No, it doesn't matter if you got there or not, but I got it on tape and I can post it.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I appreciate you answering that. That was perfect, man.
And that's where that's why I can't. I won't say I can't, but I won't necessarily jump into the coaching film, because I'm liable to grab somebody and be like, no, you got to be in this gap, because that's what I was taught, because it affects someone behind you. But when I see it in the league, I see young guys come in on my team, and coaches are a little bit lenient towards them, and I'm just like, I didn't have it like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Coach O can't coach in the league.
No, that's why he didn't. His brief stint with the Saints was gone.
Yeah.
Coach O was coaching a guy that we had at SC. Cedric Ellis was a first-round pick, top 5 pick, one of my best friends. He had Coach O in college, right? Coach O got we talked about this the other day on the phone. Coach O got every single thing out of us. Great football-minded, great defensive line coach, great head coach.
Yeah.
Got everything out of his players. But when you get to that next level, things change.
Yeah, they're making more money than you.
Yeah, now I'm paying my taxes. Now I got kids. I got this. You can't MF me to the dirt.
Yeah.
People don't respond like that. But when you got college kids coming from the dirt, the gutter, don't have nothing, they're going to wake up at 5 and do the workouts with the strength coaches. They're going to do all that, right? It's a little bit different now. It's a little bit. I'm not ready for that because I was a very disciplined person and team-oriented, team first. I got to be in my gap. And that if that means I don't get a sack, I don't care. I never cared.
Well, that's why y'all won so many games. Yeah, that's why y'all dominated.
But then at the same time, I had to, like, at some point look like, oh, I need to do, I had to catch up somewhere just to make it relevant, but I literally played for everyone around me. And that was even in the league. Team success meant more because at some point I wanted to win a championship. Yeah. I didn't take bigger contracts just solely for me. I wasn't taking chances to swim, move, and do this, that, and the other for instant gratification as for playing the way it's supposed to be played. You get a sack. What happened to the other 50 plays you played?
Yeah.
What'd you do? What'd you do? That's what I'm graded off. I'm graded off watching the whole game, not just your one highlight.
Well, see, that's why I always talk about in recruiting. It's great to watch highlight films, but you got to watch game tape. These coaches are watching game tape. You learn way more from game tape than you'll ever learn. I could put together a highlight film and look all right, but if I'm going to watch you, I want to watch your body language. I want to watch how you look on 3rd and 2. I don't care about the sack on 3rd and 12 when you knew it was a pass. What were you doing on 3rd and 2 when you had to spill the guard and he's running at you and you had to stick your shoulder in your face in it? So I'm with you, Frostee, 100%, brother. I think that's the recipe, man.
And that's how I play football. And that's the way I was taught. Yeah. Right? The game of football itself is different. It's an offensive-minded game. It's me. It's about getting a like on IG. It's about the highlight film getting, broadcasted and going viral. It's about that. And I'm not saying it's wrong because that's just like anything else, progression with everything. It happens. Mm-hmm. It just happens. But
it's a way of life.
The way I really like football is the discipline that it brought in and out of my life. And that's why I played the game the way I played. And I think I played it the right way.
Yeah, you respected it, respecting the game. I'm with you, man.
Jake, did you on Frostee's quick point on technique? Did you watch many Rams games this year or any?
Are you talking about Aaron Donald?
No. So essentially, what he's saying about technique. Watch any of Andrew Whitworth's game. The dude is 39 years old. He's a mountain of a man, but he's not a mauler anymore. He's just in the right place at the right time, just hand fighting, and that's the true why he's been in the league so long because he's not out there trying to maul people. He's just technique.
I would love, and I would not say a word, just to get on a Zoom call with Andrew Whitworth and just listen to him talk about offensive line play, and talk about. I want him to explain to me how he's able to hide pass runs so well and how he's been able to do it so many years in a row from the probably a pretty similar stance. I just think those guys have so much knowledge. He probably knows every protection. He probably knows more than the quarterback does about all the protections he's seen. And I just, those guys to me that have played in the league, number one, just playing in the league, but number two, that long and your body's not totally, beaten to, I know he just got hurt, but those guys are just a vault of knowledge. And I'd love to hear him talk about just offensive line play in general.
It's all technique, man. When it all said and done, it's technique. You can't fake it, it's technique, angles, and hand placement. Yeah. And once you know how to do that, you know how to shift your body weight. You don't have to be someone that squats 500 pounds anymore if you know how to just get your body weight. Because everything happens in football. It's a 3 or 4 second play.
Yeah.
Right? So hike the ball. You got 3 or 4 seconds to not let that guy get a sack.
Yeah. You got to be in this spot.
It's the spot. It's the angles. It's how he kicks. Yeah. And, that's what makes him a true pro. Because, like you said, he has experience and he's learned. He's had bad games.
Yeah.
Trying to do too much probably. Anxiety, going against the number one pass rusher that does this, that, and the other, and not playing his game. And now what you're seeing now, he's in complete confidence of how he plays.
Yeah.
So, well, Jake, man, this was fun, dude. love chatting with you. Obviously, good getting to know you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and tell everyone where your show is, where they can find you, how they can follow you.
Oh, definitely, man. Well, number one, I love talking ball with y'all guys. I appreciate y'all chatting it up with me and talking a little coast to coast here, man. I thought it was, really good conversation and actually progressive conversation and finding ways to kind of find solutions. But you can find the JBoy Show social media wise on Twitter and Instagram at the JBoy Show. It's easy. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at the JBoy Show. Check us out. Got some big guests coming up. Actually got FIU's special teams coordinator. We're talking some special teams. So you guys want to parlay into that, it's a pretty good deal. But thank you guys again. Frostee, is an honor talking to y'all, man. Always love watching you play and playing the game the right way, man. I got a lot of respect for your game and Ryan, yours as well, bro.
My mic game is strong. So
yeah.
Thanks, brother. Hey, it was great meeting you. Take care. All right.
Definitely. Thanks, Frostee. Good luck, man.
All right, cool. Big thanks to Jake. That was fun, man. That was a good conversation, I think.
Yeah, man. I love his perspective on a lot of things, especially, just the type of ball SEC plays and how it translates from Pac-12. And we've had many cordial conversations about how SEC differs from Pac-12 and just the way they view football in their states and different aspects of how the support from a whole city and town for the football or athletic department as for in California. So it's always good to reiterate those things to know that these California kids and West Coast kids have a lot of options, and that's the way they're viewed out there, that we're just not that focused in football because there's so much more. And it's hard to argue that because there's a lot of stuff, but like I mentioned there, if you're all about it and you're completely consumed with sport, I see no difference, but I do understand what he said.
Yeah. I hope this offseason, with a true, hopefully offseason, whenever that does start, and the Pac-12 being able to, get back to normal everyday routine. And because I know all schools went through everything, but the SEC went through things very differently than the Pac-12. Like, they were not shut down until November. They were not going through practices like the Pac-12 did. So this season, I know I brought up the fact that like the bottom half of the SEC I don't think is as good as people like to, entertain. I think the bottom half of the Pac-12 can compete. This year is hard to even compare because, the Pac-12 didn't play till Thanksgiving and they had like no practices. Everything was all Zoom before then. And we had Coach, Colbert on in October, when the season was already 3 games in the SEC and they were still just barely running routes. So I hope this offseason they can really get back to what really, football looks like. And then we can have that debate further. Like, okay, look at the improvement these Pac-12 teams have made. USC, who's had a phenomenal recruiting class, is going to probably finish top 5 this year after some big guys and Corey Foreman joining. So hopefully we can have that debate more end of next year and have it be more realistic with what I'm trying to say.
I believe we will. I absolutely will, with a strong offseason, strong recruiting class for a number of the teams in the Pac-12. But our 2 teams specifically, they did improve their football game, even though it was a short, condensed COVID-6 season. They played well, and I think them playing well kept the coaches off the hot seat for another year. I think this was a mulligan season because of how late we started. And with the true off season of spring ball and then fall camp and getting some normalcy going, I think we're going to see a better product on the field. And that's what I hope for. And I think that's going to be the true success for our 2 teams.
Yeah, well, you 100% will. I mean, there won't be an ASU 77-7 blowout of Arizona in next season because Arizona had games canceled. It was just, we got through it. I'm so super happy it happened, but I think next year will be a better gauge to gauge on, I guess. But yeah, thanks to Jake. A lot of fun. Super cool dude. We'll definitely probably have him back on. Frost, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks for jumping on, talking ball with me. We got some big shows coming up here in the next few weeks. I think our off-season guest list is continues to grow, and it's gonna be a fun off-season. The show doesn't end for the LA Football Pod.
Yeah, and with that being said, thank you to all our fans, followers, and listeners for pushing us to be more, because that's the whole goal here is for 2021 is to exceed what we did last season and just give you guys the real deal.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're off to a good start, and yeah, I'm excited about some of these guests. So I won't give names yet just because we're locking them in, but we've got a lot of ones that are down and going to come on. So should be a great offseason for Rams, Chargers, Trojans, and Bruins. And then we'll just, we're going to have some celebrities on and just talk just ball like we did today and keep it casual and fun. So Frost, where can everyone find you at?
You can find me at The Organic Frost. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook is Frostee Rucker. Yeah,
we're trying to get Frost a little more active on Twitter. So hit him up, tag him. He probably every time he logs on has like 1,000 notifications just from me tagging him. So if you guys want to hit him up too, we'll try to get him a little more active on there.
I'm trying. Getting there. I'm getting there. Ryan's pushing me, guys. He's pushing me.
I always tell people, and I'll try to make this quick. When you look at social media platforms, I look at Instagram as like a museum. You have your celebrities, your athletes, your influencers, your brands that post stuff, and then people come and look and maybe drop a couple comments and they move on to the next. Twitter's like a sports bar. Everyone's just shooting shit, talking ball, doing whatever. It's a sports bar. That's why I like the Twitter platform, because you're just everyone's just talking to each other.
Exactly. There's just so much going on. It's so chaotic. So
it's so chaotic.
And I'm just now trying to really like dive in to see what it really is all about. And I think I'll continue to let you take the lead, but I will engage more. 2021, I will do better on Twitter.
There he is. So speaking of which, you can find me at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Main account is at LAFB Network, where all of our articles and pods are posted. Follow us on YouTube. We're growing the YouTube platform at LAFB Network. We're going to start doing no time plan for this time frame, but I think we're going to start doing some more film breakdown. Who doesn't want to listen to a 13-year vet breakdown film? So that will be on the YouTube as well. So thank you all for listening. This is the LA Football Podcast. Like, subscribe, follow us. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to everyone here in just a few days.